The binoculars are crusted with ice. Sergeant Klaus Müller wipes them with his sleeve, hands shaking from more than cold. Through cracked lenses, gold catches the pale December light. The Kremlin, right there. He can count the onion domes, 5 of them. His patrol has reached Kimi village. December 2nd, 1941, 2:30 p.m. 5 kilometers. That's all. 5 frozen kilometers from the gates of Moscow. Müller radios back, voice cracking. We can see it. We can see Moscow. Behind him, his men stamp frozen boots against frozen ground. One soldier already has newspaper wrapped around his feet. The paper has turned to ice inside his boots. Around them, other German units are digging in, setting up artillery that can shell Moscow's suburbs. They've made it. 2,000 kilometers of blood and burning villages, 5 months of victory after impossible victory, and now the prize shimmers before them like a mirage. But Moscow is watching back. 5 months earlier, June 22nd, 1941, dawn breaks. Over the Bug River, then hell breaks loose. 3.8 million German soldiers, 3,600 tanks, 2,700 aircraft. The largest invasion force in human history smashes into the Soviet Union. They don't march. They don't advance. They erupt across the border like a bursting dam. The Blitzkrieg that conquered France in 6 weeks, Poland in 5, now turns east. The Red Army disintegrates. Minsk falls in 5 days. Smolensk in 3 weeks. Soviet tanks burn in fields, hundreds of them, thousands of them. By October, 3 million Soviet prisoners shuffle toward German camps. Most will never return. Field Marshal Fedor von Bock commands Army Group Center, the killing spear aimed at Moscow's heart. His diary entry drips with confidence. The enemy is broken. Moscow will fall within the week. Hitler goes on radio. October 3rd. His voice reaches across occupied Europe. The Soviet Union will never rise again. October 2nd. Operation Typhoon. The final blow. 1.9 million men, 2,000 tanks, 14,000 guns, all aimed at one target. The Wehrmacht traps 670,000 Soviet soldiers at Vyazma and Bryansk in 2 weeks. The road to Moscow lies open, a highway of corpses and abandoned equipment. Tank commander Heinz Guderian races ahead. His panzers cover 200 kilometers in 3 days. Nothing stops them. Then everything stops them. October rains come early. Roads become rivers. Rivers become lakes. Tanks sink to their turrets, engines screaming, tracks spinning uselessly. Trucks disappear completely into liquid mud. Horses drown trying to pull artillery pieces through the muck. Guderian watches his Blitzkrieg drown. October 28th, his diary. The mud is worse than the enemy. We're drowning in it. The Russians have a word for it. Rasputitsa. The time without roads. The time when Russia itself becomes the weapon. Weeks bleed away. Precious, irreplaceable weeks. When frost finally arrives in November and freezes the mud solid, the Germans have lost their timetable. They've lost their surprise. They're about to lose everything else. November 7th, 1941. Snow falls on Red Square. Stalin stands on Lenin's tomb. 40 kilometers away, German artillery booms. The sound echoes across the city. Stalin doesn't flinch. Instead, he holds a parade. A military parade. Tanks roll past the reviewing stand. Soldiers march in formation, bayonets catching the grey light. Straight from this parade, these men will go to the front lines. Some will be dead before sunset. Stalin's message needs no translation. Moscow will not surrender. German officers watch through binoculars, disbelieving. They expected panic. Refugees clogging roads, government officials burning documents. Instead, they see defiance. They see something they've never seen before. An enemy that won't break. November 15th. The real enemy arrives. Temperature -20 Celsius. German soldiers still wear summer uniforms. High command promised winter clothes would come. The clothes never came. Wilhelm Hoffmann, infantry private, wraps newspapers around his feet inside his boots. The paper soaks through with sweat, then freezes solid. Within a week, he has no toes. Within a month, he has no feet. Tank engines refuse to start. Oil turns to sludge, then to something like concrete. Soldiers light fires under engine blocks, sometimes setting entire tanks ablaze trying to warm them. Machine guns jam after 3 shots. Frozen triggers snap fingers like twigs. Telescopic sights crack. Radio batteries die. The Wehrmacht, the most modern, most mechanized army in the world, is being murdered by weather. But they keep attacking. They have to. Full winter is coming. November 28th, -30. German doctor Heinrich Harper records, "I amputated 60 frozen limbs today. Tomorrow will be worse." By December, frostbite casualties outnumber combat wounds 3 to 1. 100,000 German soldiers lose fingers, toes, limbs to cold. The hospitals overflow. The screaming never stops. The Soviets know this cold. They were born in it. General Georgy Zhukov took command October 10th, 44 years old, balding, brutal, brilliant. His order to his men is simple: let winter fight for us. Soviet soldiers have quilted jackets, felt boots, fur hats. Their weapons use different oil that stays liquid at -40. Their tanks have wider tracks that don't sink in snow. Their engines have diesel starters. The Germans watch, then begin stripping dead Russians for clothes. Corporal Franz Bauer admits in a letter home, "I took boots from a dead Ivan. His feet were smaller than mine, but frozen feet are better than no feet." The Germans aren't fighting one enemy anymore. They're fighting 2. And the second enemy never sleeps, never retreats, never shows mercy. December 2nd, Müller's patrol in Kimi. They can see the Kremlin. But Moscow sees them too. Moscow is a fortress now. Every factory a strong point. Workers weld tank traps from steel beams. Children fill bottles with gasoline for Molotov cocktails. Women dig anti-tank ditches in frozen ground. Pickaxes ringing against ice. 800,000 civilians prepare to fight. Not soldiers. Civilians. Workers. Teachers. Mothers. The Germans hit 3 suburban fortresses: Tula, Klin, Solnechny-Gorsk. In Tula, factory workers join the troops. Dirk Kraus, German infantry, reports, "Every worker had a rifle. They fought harder than soldiers. They were defending their homes." German tanks enter the city. Soviet workers drop Molotov cocktails from factory roofs. 23 tanks burn in one street. Crews cooking inside steel coffins. Klin becomes a meat grinder. Every building hides snipers. Every basement conceals machine guns. Hans Faber, Panzer Crew. "We couldn't use our tanks. Too much rubble, too many ambushes. We fought room by room, dying for each meter." At Krasnaya Polyana, Germans capture the estate where Tolstoy wrote War and Peace, 23 kilometers from the Kremlin. They set up artillery. They can shell Moscow's suburbs. General Wilhelm Ritter von Lieb notes in his journal, "We're so close, but the men are finished." German divisions are shadows. The 2nd Panzer Division has 30 tanks left from 260. The 87th Infantry, 1,500 men standing from 7,000. They're ghosts in German uniforms, shuffling through snow, waiting to die. Then they hear train whistles, not from Moscow, from behind Soviet lines, from the east, fresh Siberian divisions. 250,000 men trained for winter warfare, equipped with new T-34 tanks. Stalin's greatest secret now arriving. He kept them hidden for months, waiting. His spy, Richard Sorge, confirmed Japan won't attack Russia's eastern border. These troops are free to fight. General Konstantin Rokossovsky watches them arrive. They came off the train singing, full strength, full equipment, ready to attack. At the moment Germans can see victory. Victory is already lost. They just don't know it yet. December 5th, 1941, 3 a.m., -40 degrees. German sentries hear it first. A low rumble, then louder, then deafening. Soviet artillery, thousands of guns opening fire simultaneously. The ground shakes. The sky turns orange. Trees explode, snow evaporates. 1.1 million Soviet soldiers attack. 7,000 guns, 1,000 aircraft, fresh troops screaming, "Ura!" as they charge through the snow, white ghosts materializing from darkness. The German line shatters like glass. Private Ernst Bauer is eating frozen bread when Soviets overrun his trench. They came from nowhere. White ghosts in the snow. We ran. Everyone ran. No German unit is ready. They have no winter positions, no fortifications, no reserves. They used everything trying to take Moscow. Now they have nothing left to defend with. Panic spreads like wildfire. The Fourth Army abandons positions, leaves wounded men screaming in the snow. The Ninth Army dissolves into fleeing groups. Officers lose control. Maps become useless. Compasses freeze. Radios die. Nobody knows where anybody is. Field Marshal von Bock pleads with Hitler. We must retreat now or lose the entire army. December 16th. Hitler's response. No retreat. Not one step back. Any commander who retreats will be shot. But retreat has already begun. Nothing can stop it now. Germans abandon everything. 1,000 tanks, frozen solid, useless metal coffins scattered across Russia. 20,000 vehicles, out of fuel, buried in snow. Soldiers throw away weapons to run faster. They leave supply dumps burning. They leave field hospitals with patients still inside. Wounded men watching their comrades disappear into the blizzard. Lieutenant Friedrich Höllner's diary, December 20th. This isn't retreat, it's collapse. The army is dying. The Soviets chase them relentlessly. T-34 tanks crush fleeing columns. Cavalry units with sabers cut down stragglers. Ski troops appear from forests, attack, then vanish. Aircraft strafe anything moving on the roads. By January 7th, 1942, Germans have been thrown back 100 to 250 kilometers. 250,000 casualties. Frozen, wounded, dead, missing. Entire divisions cease to exist. The invincible Wehrmacht, the force that conquered France in 6 weeks, is broken at Moscow's gates. They will never fully recover. Moscow wasn't just a city, it was the Soviet Union's beating heart. 11 major rail lines met there. Cut those lines, the Soviet Union couldn't move troops, couldn't supply factories, couldn't feed its people. Moscow produced 10% of Soviet tanks, planes, ammunition. Lose Moscow, lose the war. Before Moscow, the Wehrmacht had never lost. Poland conquered in 5 weeks, France in 6, Yugoslavia in 11 days, Greece in 3 weeks. The German military machine looked unstoppable. Resistance seemed pointless. December 5th changed everything. Winston Churchill heard the news in London. He told Parliament, "The Germans have been beaten. They can be beaten again." President Roosevelt watched from Washington. American Lend-Lease aid increased tenfold. Soviet soldier Ivan Konev wrote his wife, "We chased them. The mighty Germans ran from us. I've never felt so proud." German Corporal Hans Roth wrote, "We thought we were supermen. Now we know we're not. We can lose. We will lose." December 7th. 2 days into the Soviet counteroffensive, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. December 11th, Hitler declared war on America. He now fought on 2 fronts against 3 superpowers. Military historian John Keegan called it the most catastrophic week in German history. The numbers tell the story. In 3 months around Moscow, 1 million casualties total. Germany lost 250,000 men they couldn't replace, lost equipment for 50 divisions, lost their best commanders, fired or dead, lost initiative forever. After Moscow, Germany never launched another successful strategic offensive in the east. Only retreats, only defeats. Stalingrad, Kursk, Berlin. Soviet Marshal Zhukov said it simply. Moscow was where we stopped retreating and started advancing. We advanced all the way to Berlin. Those 5 kilometers. That tiny gap between German fingers and Moscow's throat. The space where history pivoted. Where Hitler's 1,000-year Reich began its 3-year death spiral. Helmut Hoffmann survived Moscow barely. 40 years later, he returned, stood in Kimi, where his unit saw the Kremlin. I was 21. I thought we were liberating Russia. I left my friends frozen in these fields. For what? 800,000 Soviet civilians died defending Moscow. Lyudmila Pavlichenko, female sniper with 309 kills. Every German I shot, I thought of my brother. The Germans killed him at Smolensk. Moscow was personal. Hitler blamed everyone except himself, fired 35 generals after Moscow, blamed cowardice, blamed defeatism, never mentioned his greatest mistake, forbidding winter equipment, because he thought the war would end before winter came. Wilhelm Keitel, German High Command, admitted after the war, Moscow broke Hitler. He was never the same. General Winter gets too much credit. Yes, winter was brutal, but winter alone didn't stop the Germans. Soviet blood stopped them. Soviet courage, Soviet sacrifice, Soviet strategy. Weather was a weapon, but people pulled the trigger. Modern historians calculate the moment. If Germans had taken Moscow, the Soviet Union might have collapsed. No Eastern Front means 40 German divisions freed for North Africa and Western Europe. D-Day might have failed. Atomic bombs might have fallen on Berlin, not Hiroshima. The Cold War might never have happened, all because of 5 kilometers. December 5th is now day of military glory in Russia. Veterans gather at the monument in Kimi. The memorial's inscription reads, "Here in 1941, the fascist advance on Moscow was stopped." 5 kilometers. 3 days in December. 1.1 million Soviet soldiers saying not one step further. The Kremlin's golden spires still shine today. December 1941 remains the closest any invader has come to conquering Moscow since the Mongols. Measured in blood. Measured in ice. The German soldiers who glimpsed Moscow through frozen binoculars carried that image forever. The moment they almost won. The moment everything changed. Sergeant Klaus Müller made it back to Germany in 1943, repatriated with severe frostbite. He kept those binoculars. Every December 2nd, until he died in 1986, he would take them out, wipe the lenses, stare at nothing. His daughter found them after his funeral, scratched into the metal casing. 5 kilometers.